On the morning she was supposed to open her dream bakery, Naledi's life was hijacked by a phone call from the man who would try to own her. She stood in the warm glow of her new shop in Khumalo City, the smell of fresh bread and sugar hanging in the air. Outside, the street bustled with traffic, but inside, her world felt safe until her phone rang. The voice on the other end was cold. "Naledi, your mother is in Riverside Hospital. You need to come now." She locked the bakery door without knowing this would be the last time she'd see it the same way. Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more. The taxi ride to Riverside Hospital felt endless. Naledi stared out the window, her thoughts pulling her back to Mabat's village, to her mother's clay kitchen, the warm smell of baking, and the laughter they shared. She didn't notice the sleek black SUV parked outside the hospital entrance, or the man inside watching her every move. The doctor's face was serious. "She collapsed at the market. We suspect heart complications. But there's something else you should see." He handed Naledi a worn folder. Inside was a signed debt agreement. R470000, about $25,000, owed to a notorious moneylender. The first payment was due in 1 week. Naledi's throat tightened. Mama had never mentioned a loan. She thought she had funded her bakery with years of savings. Now she knew the truth. Mama had risked everything for her dream. That night, Naledi sat beside Mama's bed, the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor filling the silence. She was still thinking of ways to raise the money when her phone buzzed. The message was short. "I can clear your mother's debt if you agree to bake exclusively for my hotels for 3 years. Think carefully. Sizwe Dlamini." Her stomach dropped. She knew that name. Everyone in Khumalo City knew that name. Sizwe Dlamini, the hotel magnate who controlled half the luxury properties in the city. Some called him a visionary. Others called him a predator. His deals looked like gold on the outside, but those who signed them often ended up in his grip for life. Naledi stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She didn't know why he wanted her, but as she typed the word yes, she made another promise in her mind. "One day I will walk away free, and he will regret ever trying to own me." The next morning, Naledi walked into the tallest glass building in Khumalo City, Sizwe Dlamini's headquarters. The marble floors gleamed like mirrors. Receptionists smiled without warmth. She was led into his office, a space filled with dark wood, gold accents, and the faint smell of expensive cigars. Sizwe didn't stand when she entered. He simply gestured to the seat opposite his desk, his sharp eyes scanning her as if he were measuring the cost of owning her. "I've tasted your bread," he began, his voice smooth as silk. "It's remarkable. I don't offer contracts to just anyone." He slid a thick document toward her. "Exclusive supplier, 3 years. No competing sales." His smile was polite, but there was no kindness in it. "Sign this, and by tomorrow, your mother's debt will be gone." Naledi's hand shook slightly as she took the pen. She signed, but in her mind, she was already thinking about the day she would tear this paper apart. True to his word, the debt vanished overnight. The moneylender even sent a message. Accounts settled in full. But relief came with chains. Sizwe's hotels demanded large orders every day. Bread, cakes, pastries, leaving Naledi little time to serve her walk-in customers. Her bakery, once alive with laughter and chatter, now felt like a factory for his empire. Weeks turned into months. The money was steady, but Sizwe's demands grew sharper. He called at odd hours. "I want double the croissants for Hilltop Hotel tomorrow." Or, "Deliver by 5 a.m., no excuses." She complied without complaint, but each instruction tightened the invisible leash. One day, while delivering to Ocean Crest Hotel, Naledi overheard 2 managers talking in the service corridor. "You know, the last baker he signed ended up bankrupt after the contract ended," one whispered. "He makes them depend on him, then squeezes them dry." Naledi's stomach knotted. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down she knew it was true. At Mama's next checkup, the doctor said her health was improving. Naledi kept her struggles hidden, smiling and saying, "Business is good, Mama." But outside the hospital, she noticed the same black SUV she had seen the first day. The driver looked straight at her before pulling away. She realized then, Sizwe wasn't just her business partner. He was watching her. That night, she opened a fresh notebook and drew 2 columns. On one side, she wrote everything she did for Sizwe's hotels. On the other, she began sketching ideas for something new, a catering brand of her own, far from his reach. At the top of the page, she wrote 3 words: Plan for Freedom. She started small. A wedding order for an old school friend in Greenpoint Hills. A private birthday cake for a local politician's wife. Every job was paid in cash, no receipts, no trail. Deliveries were made by friends from Mabot's village, never by her. To Sizwe's staff, she was still fully devoted to the hotels. Her secret business grew quietly. She poured her best recipes into these private orders. Fresh ingredients, intricate designs, flavors inspired by Mama's kitchen. Meanwhile, the goods she sent to Sizwe's hotels were adequate. Not bad but not her best. 3 months into the contract, Naledi had a hidden box in her bedroom filled with envelopes of cash. Each one represented another brick in the wall she was building between herself and Sizwe. Mama noticed her coming home late, flour still on her cheeks, a spark in her eyes. "You're planning something," Mama said softly. Naledi just smiled. "I'm planning freedom." But Sizwe wasn't blind. One afternoon, he called her into his office. "I've been hearing whispers," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Some say you've been seen delivering to other places." His gaze was sharp, searching her face. Naledi kept her voice calm. "I go where your hotels send me, Mr. Dlamini. Nowhere else." Inside, her heart was racing. The pressure mounted. Sizwe's assistant, Bongani, began showing up at her bakery unannounced, checking inventory. He poked around her kitchen, flipping through papers, opening cupboards. Naledi started keeping 2 sets of records, one for Sizwe, and one hidden in a flour sack. Then came the opportunity she had been waiting for. Khumalo City's annual food and culture festival. It was the biggest event of the year, where the city's best chefs competed in front of thousands. Sizwe had always sponsored the bakery category, which meant if she entered through him, he would control her display. Naledi decided to go around him. She called her Greenpoint Hills wedding client, who happened to be married to the festival's chairman. With a few compliments and a promise of a private cake tasting, she secured an invitation. No Sizwe involved. She began working in secret, preparing a menu that would tell her story in flavors. Sweetbreads with honey from Mabot's village, spiced cakes inspired by Mama's old recipes, and her signature golden crust loaf. Each piece was designed to show the city who she was, without a single word spoken. And she knew, when Sizwe saw it, the leash would break. The weeks before the festival were the busiest of Naledi's life. By day, she kept up appearances, delivering to Sizwe's hotels with polite efficiency. By night, she worked on her festival creations in absolute secrecy, locking the bakery doors and covering the windows. Mama, now fully in on the plan, helped shape bread rolls and decorate cakes, humming softly as they worked. Word of the festival began to spread around the city. Food bloggers teased an exciting new contender in the bakery category. Naledi's name was never mentioned, but her designs were already causing whispers in elite circles. Sizwe didn't suspect a thing, convinced she was too tied up in his hotel work to prepare for anything else. One late evening, as she was closing up, Bongani showed up again. His eyes scanned the counters, the ovens, the empty racks. "Working late?" he asked casually. Naledi gave him a warm smile. "Big order for Hilltop tomorrow." It was a lie, but her tone was so calm, he didn't push further. She knew now she could play this game as well as Sizwe. 2 days before the festival, she delivered a massive hotel order personally to throw off suspicion. "You've been reliable lately," Sizwe remarked, almost approving. She thanked him, thinking to herself, yes, reliable enough for you to let your guard down. The night before the festival, Naledi stood in the bakery surrounded by her finished masterpieces, pastries shaped like roses, golden loaves drizzled with honey, sugar sculptures of the Khumalo skyline. Mama touched her arm. "Tomorrow they will see you. All of you." Naledi hugged her chest tight with a mix of nerves and determination. At dawn, she loaded her creations into an unmarked delivery van borrowed from her cousin in Mabot's village. The streets of Khumalo were quiet, but her mind was loud with thoughts. This was her moment, not just to impress the judges, but to show Sizwe, in front of the entire city, that she could not be owned. When she arrived at the festival grounds, other vendors were already setting up. Her assigned space was right in the center, with a perfect view of the main stage. She set out her pastries with precision, arranging flowers and fabrics from Mabots around the table. By the time the gates opened, the air around her stand was rich with the scent of fresh bread and sweet spices. Crowds gathered quickly, drawn in by the beauty of her display. People snapped photos, posted them online, and tagged #KhumaloFestival. Within an hour, her table was trending locally. She kept her smile calm and her voice warm, greeting each visitor like an old friend. Inside, her heart beat like a drum. She knew it was only a matter of time before Sizwe appeared. At noon she saw him, walking through the crowd in his dark tailored suit, flanked by 2 assistants. His eyes swept the festival before landing on her stand. For a brief moment there was shock. Then came the slow, calculated smile she knew so well. He began making his way toward her, each step deliberate, the crowd parting to let him through. When he reached her, his voice was low but cutting. "Naledi, I don't remember approving your participation here." She met his gaze without blinking. "That's because you didn't. This is my work, my name, my life, and I don't need your approval." Around them, people slowed their steps, sensing drama. A few raised their phones, ready to record. And Naledi knew, the real showdown had just begun. The crowd leaned in, sensing something bigger than a casual exchange. Sizwe's smile stayed fixed, but his tone grew colder. "Careful, Naledi. This kind of disloyalty can be expensive." She kept her hands steady on the table, arranging pastries like she had all the time in the world. "Expensive for who? You've had my best work, my longest hours, my loyalty, and in return you gave me chains." A ripple of murmurs moved through the onlookers. A food blogger filming nearby whispered to a friend, "This is gold, it's going online." Sizwe's eyes flicked toward the phones now pointing in his direction. "You forget I made you," he said under his breath. Naledi leaned closer, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut. "No, you thought you owned me. That's not the same thing." The festival chairman, noticing the tension, stepped forward. "Is everything all right here?" Naledi turned to him with a warm smile. "Perfect timing. Chairman, I'd like to present my entry officially. As an independent baker." The chairman examined her display, broke a piece from her golden crust bread, and tasted it. His brows lifted. "This is exceptional. You're a clear contender for best in show." The words landed like a public stamp of approval. The crowd reacted instantly, clapping and cheering. Someone shouted, "Naledi, we're proud of you." Sizwe's jaw tightened. He stood straighter, adjusting his cuffs, but the control he was used to having was slipping in front of dozens of recording phones. By mid-afternoon, news of the confrontation had spread across the festival. Hashtags like #NalediTheBaker and #BreakingFreeFromDlamini were trending locally. Customers swarmed her stand, asking if she took orders. Naledi accepted each one, her notebook filling with names and numbers, each order another nail in the coffin of Sizwe's control. When the judging began, Naledi stood beside her table, Mama at her side. The judges tasted each entry, saving hers for last. As they sampled her pastries, her golden loaf, and her spiced cake, the crowd grew silent. Then the head judge smiled broadly. "This year's best in show goes to Naledi's Golden Table." The cheers exploded, and Mama hugged her tight. Sizwe approached her afterward, his voice so low it barely carried over the noise. You've made your choice. Don't expect my protection when things turn against you. Naledi looked at him with steady eyes. I've never needed your protection. I needed my freedom, and now I have it. She handed him a white envelope. Inside was a signed contract termination letter, dated that morning. Sizwe's eyes narrowed as he read it. You'll regret this. Naledi smiled faintly. No, Mr. Dlamini. The only thing I regret is not breaking free sooner. She turned away before he could reply. As he walked off, the festival energy still buzzing around her, Naledi felt years of pressure lift from her shoulders. She had her orders, her title, her customers, and her name was now known in every corner of Khumalo City. The leash had been cut in full view of the people who mattered most, her future clients. That night, back at the bakery, Mama poured her tea and said, You didn't just win today, you set yourself free. Naledi sipped slowly, the aroma of fresh bread filling the room. Yes, Mama, she said softly. And the sweetest part is, the whole city saw it happen. In the days that followed, the story of Naledi's festival triumph spread beyond Khumalo City. Lifestyle magazines published features titled, The Baker Who Defied the Mogul. Radio hosts debated whether she was reckless or brave. But in coffee shops and market stalls, the conversation was one-sided. Everyone admired the woman who had stood her ground. Orders poured in. By the end of the first week, Naledi had hired 2 assistants from Mabat's village to keep up with demand. Mama, healthier than she'd been in years, moved into the apartment above the bakery so she could be close without tiring herself. The shop was filled again with the laughter and chatter that had been missing for months. Meanwhile, Sizwe's reputation began to shift. Former suppliers started speaking up, quietly at first, then openly. Stories emerged of unfair contracts, sudden terminations, and deliberate sabotage. Hotel clients who once saw him as untouchable began questioning whether they wanted their names tied to his. Thandi from Ocean Crest Hotel stopped by the bakery one afternoon. You know Naledi, she said with a smile. 2 of his biggest accounts just pulled out. They're looking for new partners. I may have dropped your name. Naledi laughed softly. I appreciate it. But I'm not going back into his shadow, not even for the biggest deal in the city. Instead, she focused on her own growth. 3 months after the festival, Naledi's Golden Table opened a second branch in the wealthy district of Greenpoint Hills. This time, she built the business entirely on her terms. Flexible contracts, fair wages, and suppliers treated like family. Her success became a quiet lesson to others. You could win in business without exploiting people. Sizwe tried once more to lure her back. He walked into the Greenpoint branch in a pale gray suit, his voice unusually soft. We could work as equals now. Combine our networks. Naledi met his gaze, calm and unshaken. Partnerships are built on trust, Mr. Dlamini. And you lost that the day you tried to own me. Without waiting for a reply, she turned to serve a customer. Her refusal only boosted her reputation. People admired that she couldn't be bought, no matter the offer. Invitations to speak at women's entrepreneurship events came from as far as Cape Town and Nairobi. On stage, she told her story with grace, ending every talk with the same line. Never trade your freedom for short-term comfort. Build something no one can take from you. Mama often sat in the bakery corner with a cup of rooibos tea, watching her daughter work. Sometimes she would quietly tell customers, "This is her dream, built with her own 2 hands." Naledi always pretended not to hear, but inside, those words meant more than any award. By the time the next Khumalo City Food and Culture Festival came around, Naledi wasn't competing, she was judging. Her face appeared on posters across the city, this time not as Sizwe's supplier, but as Naledi the baker, independent and unstoppable. When she stepped onto the stage, the applause was thunderous. In the crowd, she spotted a young woman holding a folder of sketches for a catering business. After the event, the woman approached nervously. "People say I'm too small to start," she said. Naledi smiled, pressing one of her business cards into her hand. So was I once. Start anyway. The young woman's eyes lit up, and Naledi knew she had just passed on the spark that had. That evening, back at the bakery, Mama asked quietly, "Do you still think about him?" Naledi stirred her tea, considering the question. "Only as a chapter in my story, Mama. One that taught me I'm stronger than I ever knew." Mama smiled knowingly. Then that chapter served its purpose. They drank in silence, the warm scent of bread filling the air. In Khumalo City, people still spoke about the day she broke free from the most feared hotel magnate in the region. But Naledi no longer cared about the gossip. Her focus was on her customers, her staff, and the two bustling branches of Naledi's golden table. Every loaf, every cake, every smile she served felt like another reminder that she had taken her life back. Sizwe's empire quietly shrank. Some said he moved his business to another city. Others claimed he'd retired altogether. Naledi never confirmed either way. She didn't need to. Her revenge had never been about destroying him. It was about freeing herself. And that freedom was now woven into every success she enjoyed. 3 years later, Naledi's golden table had expanded into 4 cities, exporting specialty breads across the country. Mama traveled with her often, sitting proudly in the front row at business conferences where Naledi shared her story. To every audience, she repeated the same lesson. Your talent is your gift. Never let anyone use it to build their empire while keeping you in the shadows. And so, the young woman from Mabat's village who once stood in the shadow of a powerful man ended her journey standing fully in her own sunlight. She had turned betrayal into her stepping stone, debt into a legacy, and fear into freedom. As the warm smell of fresh bread drifted out of her bakery into the city streets, Naledi knew the truth. Her sweetest victory wasn't in proving him wrong. It was in proving herself right.